All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. And feel free to go ahead and ask questions along the way since we're a smaller group today. And yeah, I'll go ahead and screen share. If you can give me permission for that, Jimmy.
Sorry, you should be good now.
All right. Yeah, so today I wanted to talk about like the 80-20 of SEO for content marketing. So I know that a lot of content marketers kind of look at SEO as like this other different thing. And I think it's really important to look at the two as being connected because otherwise you're just not going to get the same value that you could be getting from your content marketing. So up top, I like to think about like, what does Google really care about? Well, so their goal is to provide the best results for the searcher. And so the goal should be to create the post that's going to best answer the searcher's question. So it's not all just about creating, like the perfectly optimized post. It really does come back to just kind of understanding what do they really want to know and then adding in these sort of 5 or 6 tactics that I'm going to show in this presentation. And then really, so once you've done like the SERP analysis, the customer research, which I think I talked about in other workshops, you're in a really good place. So the first one, and this one may seem kind of obvious, like, okay, yeah, I already know that you should include the keyword in the title, but I want to give you guys some more advanced things. So first, make sure that it's the beginning of the title. That usually helps, and then you mention it a couple times in that first paragraph. But the other thing is, sometimes you'll have a keyword that's a little too difficult for you to rank for. So like this is really common in startups. Maybe you have like a social media tool. And I think the keyword difficulty for that is like 52 or something. So what I would do instead is if you actually Google that term and then you pull like one of the top ranking posts for it, and you could put it right into Ahrefs. So like I Googled, I think like best CRM for real estate, and that had like a really high difficulty. So instead what I did was I took the top ranking post and then I filtered it by like, so the minimum's only up to 30. And then I made sure to include real estate. And then when I first did this, I saw that a lot of these keywords they included like free. And the key thing when you're changing a keyword is to make sure you're not changing the SERP intent. Or the searcher's intent. So like CRM for real estate and free CRM for real estate are going to attract two really different audiences. So like if you're trying to get conversions, you're not really going to get conversions for this one. So that's why I make sure to exclude any of those kinds of keywords. But even with that, you'll look and see like, okay, CRM for real estate developers. You could actually just change your post to rank for that because it has less volume, but you're going to be able to rank for it a lot easier. It only has a keyword difficulty of like 21 versus like 52. And then when you can get people to your posts, then you'll see that Google will see a lot of positive searcher signals. So they'll see that people are sticking around on that page. So you can actually eventually, as you gain more authority, even take off the developers and go after just this keyword, and you'll have a much better shot at ranking for it. So that's kind of a little hack that I've learned. So if you guys wanted to jump into this first task, I'm guessing that most of your posts already have a keyword in the title. If not, what I would do is go back and audit them to make sure that they do. What you can do is pretty much just go into Ahrefs, put in your URL, and search for like the top pages. Oh, I think because this is a full URL, it won't work. But basically go into the top pages and then you can just kind of scan through and see if they do or do not have a keyword. And then if not, if all of them do have keywords, then go ahead and execute this task where you pretty much just Google that really high difficulty keyword, pull the top ranking post, put that whole URL into Ahrefs, and then sort of filter by keyword difficulty. Maybe what I'll actually do is just leave this up here so you can see how I actually have everything filtered up here. And yeah, you guys can have until 10:15 to go ahead and do that. And feel free to let me know if you guys have any questions. All right, so I hope that you guys got some keywords figured out there. The next step is actually improving the user experience. And I feel like this one's actually really underrated, but it's become very important, especially since Google rolled out their page experience update. So here's an example of a post that was doing like 6,000 month visits. And then the page experience hit, and you can tell that it dramatically dropped. So I'll actually show you guys this post. It's a 17,000 word guide to influencer marketing. And you would think like, oh, well, it's super detailed. It should rank really well. But when people come here, it is so difficult for them to find anything. Like, sure, there's a table of contents here, but it's really difficult as you're scrolling through here to just be able to find anything. So that's why this is super important. And you can actually edit it, but they still, the editorial team didn't really want to do anything different with the user experience. And so it just never got back up there. So what can you actually do to improve the user experience? Because there's sort of two sides to this. One of it is just improving like the actual design of it, whereas the other side of it is improving the technical aspects of it. So the first thing that I recommend is adding like a sticky table of contents. So that would really help with like this post. I can show you guys an example. Moosend actually has a really great example of this. Let's see if this one has. So yeah, you can tell, oh, they actually changed it. They used to have this table of contents that would slide with, oh yeah, it still does. So you can tell that as I'm sliding through here, I can still navigate to any section within the post. So that's super helpful. You can usually just ask your developer to implement that for you. They can use like a WordPress plugin or something. The other thing is improving load speed. So I don't know how to do this myself, but you could just send that to someone like on Upwork. I was actually talking with a friend yesterday about like finding a really good technical SEO, and they had mentioned going to Traffic Think Tank, which is a paid Slack group as well. But I think it has really high quality people in there, and you could probably just reach out to one of them and ask them to help you. The other thing that you can do on your own is just sort of eliminating pop-ups. If you absolutely have to use a pop-up, because I do realize that they're effective at grabbing email addresses and whatnot, use an exit pop-up. You guys probably already know that. And then the other thing would be eliminating any sort of big blocks of text and bullet points. So this one actually does a pretty good job of that, in that it highlights key points. It's pretty easy to skim through. And that may seem backwards, but the easier you make it to skim, the longer people are going to stay on your page. So that's going to be a really positive user signal to Google. And then if you can afford it, consider doing like an overhaul on your blog's design. This is actually something that I'm in the process of doing. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll have more information on how to do that later. Probably not the best person to talk about that right now, because I'm figuring out that that is actually pretty difficult to do. If you're looking for inspiration for really good design, I really love Backlink. You can tell that it's just super easy to skim. I love that he bolds these things. And it pretty much just looks like how somebody would talk. And that's the idea of really great copy in general. So this next task is pretty much to look at the low-hanging fruit that you can tackle. So I realize you might not have the ability to, say, change the entire design of your blog or hire a technical SEO on the spot. But if that is a significant issue and you guys have the budget, you're able to fix that, I would go ahead and send a message to whoever can help initiate that, whether it's maybe just signing up for that Slack group that I mentioned, something like that. The other part of it, though, is something that you can go ahead and fix, and make sure that you're auditing your piece to make sure that they're bullet points, you're using H2s and H3s. The other thing that you'll probably, I'm guessing most of you guys are already using like bullet points, H2s and H3s, but actually going in and bolding or italicizing really key points, that's actually super helpful, because that's going to keep their attention and keep them scrolling. So look through some of the posts that you have right now. And even if you just make a list and say, send it to your developer or to your team of like, hey, here are a couple of things that I think we could do to deliver a better user experience. So that's going to be your task until like 10:25. So you can go ahead and take that in any direction that you want. And then we'll come back for the next step. And as always, any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. right, so hopefully you guys had some time to figure out how to improve your user experience. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is internal linking. And again, you guys probably already know this, but I find that not enough people are actually doing this. So Brian Dean actually said in an interview that internal links are one of the most underrated SEO tactics that exists. And so how do you actually do internal linking correctly? So it should always be really kind of natural and organic. The point is to provide a resource to another page if the topic that you're mentioning in passing has a lot more depth. So for example, something like in this post, or I think it's actually a different post here. But basically like I think you guys probably already know what an internal link is. It's like if one of these is pointing to a different, okay, so, well, I guess that's an external link. Anyway, so of course you should also always link out to any sort of statistics, but essentially if this post has links from any other blogs on Backlinko, this post is actually getting the benefit of that. So to strengthen a page, the link to it from the other page on your site, it has a lot more authority. So like high quality external links pointing towards it. And I found that the best way to actually find those pages is to go into Ahrefs, click on the Best by Links report, and then it's going to show you a list of all of the pages on your website that have the most links. So for example, like if I'm Social Pilot and I have all of these posts have the most links or more or less. I guess it's not completely accurate. You can sort by like referring domains. Um, and then basically what I would do is let's say that we have this post on Instagram shadow ban, and maybe it's not ranking that well. So I want to make it rank even better. So what I would do is go into here and I would look for things like, okay, like how to use hashtags effectively in social media marketing. So I would come into this post and I would figure out a way to mention Instagram shadow banned. And then what I can do is link from this post to this post, and then this post is actually going to get the benefit of it. So that's kind of a neat little trick that I figured out, because getting a link from one of these posts that already has like 169 referring domains, that's going to be a lot more impactful than just some other random blog post on your website. And that's not to say that you shouldn't link from other blog posts that don't have really high authority. If it's natural and you think that it would be a great resource for the reader, like, yeah, go ahead and do it. But if you're really trying to boost the rankings of it, go into this Best by Links report, and that's going to help you out a lot. Also make sure that you're using appropriate anchor text. So for example, if I was going to link from this post to this post on Instagram shadow ban, I would try to make sure that I'm including this keyword in that anchor text or something similar to it. It doesn't have to be the exact keyword. So I know that one was pretty short, but what I would do is for this task, take a look at the posts that aren't ranking quite where you want them to rank, make a list of them, and then go into that Best by Links report and find a couple of other posts that you can link to those newer posts that you want to rank higher. And specifically what I would do is make a list of those posts and then figure out exactly what sentence you would add and the link that you would point it towards. So I'll give you guys until 10:42 to go ahead and do that, because I think you guys should be able to get a pretty good list here. All right, so hopefully you guys got a couple of links, internal links leads there. The next one I want to talk about is actually external links. So this is one that I used to just think, oh, well, that's kind of an SEO's problem. Like as a content marketer, I don't really have to worry about it. But the reality is that if you're writing content and there are no links being built to it, your content probably isn't going to do nearly as well as it could. So there is some debate of like, okay, well, how relevant actually are they? And I don't think that they're as relevant as they used to be, but they're still pretty important. If you look through here, so like here's the root domain and the backlink number, and you'll see that these top ranking ones still have a lot. And as you scroll down, it's not as much like, okay, this one only has 20, this one has not as many as the top ones, but they're still pretty important. And the other thing that I want to mention is it's not so much of a numbers game. It's really the quality of the backlink. And it's more like, okay, if you have a handful of really high authority links, you'll probably be able to still compete with websites that have maybe like, it says, oh, they have 400 links, but what is the quality of those links actually? So what makes a really high quality link? So first, it should have really high authority. So ideally, and I know that domain rating authorities, it's kind of a metric based off of whatever SEO tool you use. So like domain authority was Moz's metric, domain rating is Ahrefs metric. And it's not completely accurate. It's not like a Google metric, but it's still really helpful to guide you. So ideally, I still look for websites that have high authority, like whether it's a DA or DR, high authority. Then also you want to make sure that it's editorially placed. So for example, like this is an editorially placed link. And then you want to make sure that it's topically relevant as well. So like if I'm Brian Dean trying to get more backlinks, like sure, maybe a link from apple.com, that's a really authoritative site and has a lot of trust. But because it's not topically relevant to marketing, it's not going to be nearly as effective as a link from, say, like Ahrefs.com. And then I already kind of explained like why it really is kind of a content marketer's problem. So that's pretty much all that I have. Okay, so yeah, how do you actually build links? So this is a major issue because it doesn't really scale that well and it's pretty hard. So a lot of people will just send like 1,000 emails to different blogs and offer to guest post or something. But the reality is that that's not really that valuable to the other blogs. So that's why it doesn't work that well. And Google also kind of looks down on that. So what I would prefer to do is actually just attract links to you. So, and then what you can do is have that post internally linked to the other posts that you want to rank for, because ideally you want the links built directly to the post that you're trying to rank higher, not just like the home page. But it still can work if you're building these sort of linkable assets and then linking to your desired post. So what do those look like? Well, if you Google pretty much, if you put like any URL in here, you'll usually find like statistics pages are in the top, like best by links. So that's my first go-to is I try to create some sort of like a statistic post. And the other option is to create like an original data post. So I've already talked about this in like my creating original content workshop of how you can actually go through and create really high authority like stats posts. So I would encourage you guys to go back and check that out. But basically, what you should do is just come up with an idea of those stats. And then even if you can't think of an original way to create those stats, if you just Google around and then create a stat page pretty much just curate it, it'll still do pretty well. The other option, which I've only just started and it's working pretty well, is to offer to refresh other people's content. So here's what I do. I'll usually find like a competing post. So let's say that I just wrote a post on social media tools. So I'll go ahead and Google that. I'll find some of the top ranking posts in here. let's say that I pull this one by HubSpot. I'll take that URL and then I'll actually put it into Ahrefs and let's see. And I'll see who is linking to them. And this is actually super helpful. I'll actually just pull it up here. I think I have a direct link. Because what I'll do is I'll reach out to these sites and say, hey, I saw that you have this post on whatever it is. And basically, I think that it could perform a lot better if it was updated. Do you want me to update it? And I'll do that for free if I can just swap out the link from this social media tools to this new blog post that I just created on social media tools. So you kind of have to filter because most of the links aren't really that great, like that high quality. So I make sure that it's a do follow link. There's still evidence that no follow links can be helpful, but I figure let's just go for the do follow. Then the backlink type, it ideally should be like in the content. If it's in the like the image anchor text, it's usually just that they pulled an image and you might not have that same image. Then ideally I want it to be from a domain with like 30 or 40 above, depends on your preference. You can even do it by traffic. Usually though, if you filter by traffic, you're not going to get as many results. So that's why I didn't do this one. Then I also make sure that I'm only targeting the anchor and surrounding text, and then I'm making sure that I include something around social media. And then I also make sure to just filter by language. And as you can see, so like what I would do is reach out to TextBroker and say like, hey, I saw this post on content writing hacks. Do you want this just updated for you? And the only thing that I want to do is be able to swap out this link to this new post that I wrote. And you can go through and do that for all of these posts. And you don't have to pull like just the one on HubSpot. You can go ahead and pull any of these posts in here. So I actually usually just scan through and see which ones have the most, like the highest number of root domains, and then I'll click on them and enter them. So this is the next task. You can choose either option. You can either go ahead and start creating a list of posts that your competitors' pages are ranking for, and go ahead and do that, execute that process that I just showed. Or you can think of a way to come up with stats pages and sort of what those topics would look like. Or if you want to do like an original data post, start working on like how you can actually collect that data. So I know that these are a lot of different options. If you have any additional questions or want me to clarify it in the chat, feel free to go ahead and send me a message. All right. So the final thing that I wanted to just touch on is this is just kind of my 2 cents on keyword optimization tools. So a lot of these like ClearScope or Surfer SEO, what they'll do is they'll pull like the most commonly mentioned keywords in the top ranking posts and then pretty much just tell you which ones to include in your post. And I actually had an interesting conversation with the content manager at Ahrefs, and they said that they actually recommend against using these things. And I think that there's a way to use it and still have it be relevant. So like it's really nice to be able to know that you're mentioning the key topics that other top ranking posts are mentioning, but they're not always great like if the SERP that you're targeting is really low quality or like the searcher intent's unclear, because then they tend to pull sort of irrelevant keywords. Um, so approach it more from the perspective of, are we talking about relevant topics that searcher wants to learn about? And avoid sort of approaching it from that perspective of, we actually need to weave these keywords into these sentences. Like that's probably not going to change a whole lot. So that is the pretty much it for today. I really appreciate you coming here. And yeah, Jimmy, if you have anything else.
I think that's all. Thank you, as always, Megan. We'll publish the recording. If you're able to share slides, we can publish that along with it if you're open to that. And we'll have more info about the next one coming soon. So keep an eye on the Slack community. Oh, we lost your sound for a second, Megan.
Thank you guys so much.
Oh, there you go. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Take care.
See ya.